Good afternoon, this is John Burke. As I said in the previous video, I would speak more about the Tucker-Putin interview. So this is the second video on this subject. So during the interview, Putin mentioned statistics regarding the percentage of world trade between the G7 and BRICS. And he also mentioned the size of the Chinese economy. He also spoke at great length about the history of Russia and Ukraine. So I'm going to touch upon these points very briefly. So I'm going to start with the statistics on BRICS versus G7 in terms of percentage of world trade. So in 2007, G7 accounted for approximately 44% of world trade, while the BRICS, as they are presently constituted, accounted for 18%. And I'm getting this data from a website called Statista, which is very reliable. In 2023, we see an immense change. The G7 accounts for 30% of total world trade, BRICS, 32%. So Putin mentioned that the BRICS were outproducing in terms of the percentage of world global trade than the G7, and that is in fact true. The size of China's economy is a difficult question, and it's a question of debate depending upon the source of data that's used and also the source of calculating GDP. So different sources produce different data sets. Even when you go to reliable sites like the IMF, World Economics, World Bank. So what I'm going to rely on here is the IMF and reporting GDP as measured in constant prices for the year 2023. So if we use this metric, the United States economy is still the largest in the world, and China is second. So US 27 trillion and China 18 trillion respectively. But if we use a different metric, purchasing power parity, then China is the largest economy in the world. But then we have to ask ourselves, what is this purchasing power parity, and is it reliable? So it's an attempt to compare economies using the cost of a comparable basket of goods in each country. The World Bank has a specific program to accomplish this. It's called the International Comparison Program. But there are many critics of PPP. But again, there are many critics of taking GDP in constant prices since it does not necessarily reflect the reality of the size of an economy. In any event, if we look at measuring GDP, purchasing power parity, and we rank, let's say, the top 10 or top 12 countries, we can see, even based upon IMF data, that there have been significant changes since the post-World War II era, where we had the G7 as the largest, most important industrialized nations. So I'll just read the first 10 based upon estimated IMF data for 2023. So China is largest, United States, India, Japan, Germany, Russia at 6, Indonesia at 7, Brazil 8, France 9, and the UK 10. So we can see a reconstituted G7 at this point, we would only have 3 remaining original members, the United States, Japan, and Germany. If we look at a different source of data, World Economics, we come up with even a more extreme set of rankings. So we have China number 1, US number 2, India 3, Japan 4, we're still following, but now Russia is 5, Indonesia 6, Germany 7, Brazil 8, Turkey 9, and Mexico 10. As I said, PPP is a subject of debate. I encourage you to go to the World Bank website where it explains the method that they use to calculate PPP using their particular metric. And you can decide for yourself what do you find more reliable, constant prices, or purchasing power parity. Now I'll turn my attention to the history that Putin went over in great detail. But I just want to say very briefly, I think one major point that he wanted to make is to stress the common factors or elements between Russia and Ukraine. I think he, without saying so, he might have wanted to suggest that this war can be characterized as a civil war rather than a war between two distinct and completely different countries. Again, I let you listen to the interview itself, and you can read the transcript and come to your own conclusion. The second point Putin wanted to make was that Russia will not be defeated in this particular military operation, even though Russia at this point is not only fighting Ukraine, but fighting Ukraine with a broad range of support from other countries, and this support comes in the form of military, financial, advisory, and technical aid. What I want to mention in conclusion is something that Putin didn't say, because he did speak to the dissolution of the USSR, but he did not speak to the underlying legal issues. In my view, and I've done research on the subject, the USSR was unlawfully dissolved according to the constitution in place at that particular time. So what happened is we have three presidents: the presidents of the Russian Republic, the Ukrainian Republic, and Belarusian Republic, and they meet in woods in Belarus, and signed an agreement simply to dissolve the USSR, and it was a fait accompli. That was it. But in my view, and I have read the USSR Constitution in place at that time, this was in no way the procedure to follow to disband or dissolve or to change the legal status of the USSR. And I encourage you to look at the documents about the Belarus Accords, which are followed by the Almaty Accords, which were just to put a rubber stamp by the other remaining presidents of republics and to make it look more official, but it otherwise didn't change the legal significance of their action. So if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, and if you want, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you, good afternoon, and I will talk to you soon.